One day in life, something strange happens. You stop being surprised by people, not because people suddenly became kinder, not because you became cold, but because after enough disappointment, after enough misunderstandings, after enough nights replaying someone's words in your head, you finally realize something painful. Most people were never who you thought they were. They were only the version of them you created with hope. And the moment you see this clearly, the way you look at people changes forever. You begin noticing small things. The person who smiles the most is not always the kindest. The person who talks gently is not always sincere. The quiet person in the room may be carrying the deepest understanding. And sometimes, the person closest to you becomes the one capable of hurting you the most. The German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer understood this better than most. He was not a philosopher who tried to comfort people with pleasant illusions. He did not say human beings are naturally good. He did not promise that love will always save us. Instead, he looked at human nature honestly and said something most people avoid saying. Human beings are deeply selfish creatures, not always cruel, but almost always centered around their own pain, their own needs, their own survival. This is why people can sit beside you, listen to your story, and still fail to truly see you. Because everyone looks at the world through their own mind, their own wounds, their own fears, their own expectations. Very few people ever see another person clearly. Most people see only how that person affects them. And that is where so many misunderstandings begin. Imagine this simple moment. Someone walks past you without greeting you. Immediately, a thought appears. Maybe they ignored me. Maybe they dislike me. Maybe I did something wrong. But what if they were simply exhausted? What if their mind was somewhere else? What if they were carrying a private pain you cannot see? Schopenhauer believed that most human conflict begins here, not from cruelty, but from interpretation. We judge others using our own expectations. And when those expectations are broken, we feel hurt. But the truth is this: many wounds come not from what people did, but from what we believed they would never do. This realization changes how you see relationships. When we first meet someone, we meet them with hope. We listen carefully. We watch their gestures. We collect small signals. A kind sentence, a thoughtful moment, a shared laugh. From these small pieces, we slowly build a version of them in our mind, often a version that is kinder, more loyal, more understanding than they truly are. Then one day, something small happens. They forget you when you need them. They speak carelessly. They disappear during your difficult time. And suddenly the image breaks, not because they changed, but because you finally saw them without your expectations standing in front of them. This is one of the hardest truths about life. People rarely become worse. We simply see them more clearly over time. Schopenhauer believed this is why emotional distance matters. Human beings need closeness. We want companionship. We want understanding. We want someone who truly sees us. But too much closeness, without wisdom, often leads to pain. Schopenhauer once described human relationships using the image of porcupines in winter. Two porcupines come close to keep warm, but when they move too close, their sharp quills wound each other, so they move apart, but the cold pushes them together again. Human relationships are often exactly like this. We need warmth from others, but too much closeness, without respect and self-control, creates injury. You tell someone too much, and one day they use it carelessly. You trust someone too deeply, and one day they fail you casually. You become familiar, and suddenly, the careful kindness disappears, because familiarity often removes caution, and when caution disappears, small wounds begin. Think about it. Strangers often speak to each other more politely than family members. Why? Because strangers keep distance. Distance creates awareness. Closeness sometimes creates carelessness. That is why the deepest pain in life rarely comes from enemies. It comes from people who once said, "I understand you." The heart remembers these moments. The changed tone, the silence when support was needed, the feeling that your pain was less important than you believed. And slowly, something changes inside you. You stop explaining yourself so much. You stop reacting to every criticism. You stop trying to win every misunderstanding. You stop trying to prove your value to people who never tried to see it. This is where a new strength begins. Not loud strength, but quiet strength. The strength of silence. Schopenhauer believed that silence is one of the greatest forms of power. Not weak silence, not fearful silence, but chosen silence. When someone insults you, your first instinct is to respond, to defend yourself, to correct the story. But sometimes, the strongest response is refusing to give your peace away. Because once you start arguing with people determined to misunderstand you, you have already lost something valuable. Your calm, your clarity. your center. Schopenhauer also warned about another danger in human relationships: loose speech. People often believe the person who talks the most is the most intelligent. But often the opposite is true. A person who speaks constantly reveals more about themselves than they realize. Someone who easily criticizes others will one day criticize you. Someone who spreads stories about others will eventually spread stories about you. Trust is not built on words. Trust is built on restraint. A person who chooses their words carefully is someone who respects the power of speech, because a single careless sentence can break years of closeness. Another uncomfortable truth about people is how they treat those weaker than themselves. Watch closely how someone behaves toward people who cannot benefit them. A waiter, a worker, a quiet colleague, someone shy or struggling. In those moments, real character appears. A person who is truly confident does not need to make others feel small. But a person filled with insecurity often searches for someone beneath them to feel superior. Schopenhauer believed contempt often hides weakness. The person who insults others is often protecting their own fragile pride. Strong people rarely feel the need to prove superiority. They already feel secure within themselves. But perhaps the most misunderstood idea in Schopenhauer's philosophy is solitude. People often think solitude means loneliness, but Schopenhauer believed something different. He believed solitude is often the only place where a person can truly be themselves, because in crowds, people constantly adjust themselves. They hide thoughts, they soften opinions, they perform roles. But in solitude, there is no audience, no expectations, no pressure to appear stronger or happier than you are, just honesty. This is why many people begin to appreciate solitude as they grow older, not because they hate people, but because they become tired of explaining themselves. They become tired of pretending not to feel hurt. They become tired of expecting depth from people who never learned how to look inward. Solitude becomes a place of recovery, a place where the mind can breathe again. Schopenhauer never said we should avoid people completely. He simply believed we must see them realistically. People are imperfect. They're influenced by ego, fear, jealousy, desire for approval. Sometimes they will disappoint you. Sometimes they will misunderstand you. Sometimes they will leave. But this does not mean life becomes empty. It simply means we must build our inner stability somewhere deeper than other people's approval. Because once you stop expecting perfection from people, something surprising happens. You become calmer. You stop collapsing every time someone disappoints you. You begin to observe more than react. You begin to choose your relationships more carefully. And slowly, your life becomes quieter, but also stronger. You learn to be warm without being naive. You learn to be kind without surrendering your boundaries. You learn to care for people without losing yourself inside them. This is the balance Schopenhauer believed wise people must learn. Distance without cruelty. Kindness without weakness. Understanding without illusion. Because in the end, a strong life is not built by finding perfect people. It is built by learning how to meet imperfect people without losing your center. So the next time someone disappoints you, pause. The next time someone misunderstands you, pause and remember something liberating. Not everyone deserves full access to your heart. Not everyone who enters your life deserves the power to disturb your peace. Some people are lessons. Some people are warnings. Some people are temporary companions. And a very small number are the ones who truly understand you. Until then, walk carefully. Trust slowly, speak thoughtfully, observe quietly, and remember this truth Schopenhauer tried to teach us. The moment you stop expecting people to be more than they are, you finally become free enough to be fully yourself.